What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Matt is going to be joining me in just a moment to talk about the conference championships from this past weekend in the NFL. Maybe look a little bit forward to the Super Bowl, but we'll be back next Wednesday to do our full Super Bowl breakdown ahead of the game, giving gambling picks, breaking down the game, and making our Super Bowl predictions. This week, we're going to focus a little bit more on the two teams who lost conference championship weekend, the two teams who did not make the Super Bowl, because we have a whole week next week to talk about the two teams who did. Just a reminder that we set up an email address for you guys to reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. We really appreciate you guys listening to the podcast, and we would love to hear from you. Let us know what is working, what's not on the pod, and what you want to hear more of. Or if you're a Lions or a Ravens fan who is heartbroken and can't get over what happened this past weekend, we'd love to hear from you guys too, because my mind is boggled by what I watched this past weekend. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since Sunday, and I'm ready to talk to Matt about it, at least get our thoughts out there. But man, I feel like these losses for the Ravens and Lions are going to be ones that stick with these franchises for a long, long time because they were so close and yet so far away. So let's bring in Matt and let's talk about conference championship weekend. Let's go. All right. Matt is here. Matt, what do you feel like talking about today?
I thought we agreed that today was going to be all about underwater hockey.
We contemplated if we should go to macrame, underwater hockey, competitive ice luge. I seriously thought about doing a full podcast about who your favorite baseball players are from the early 2000s when we were growing up watching baseball and just completely ignoring the conference championship games in the NFL, like just not even mentioning it. But there's a lot of people who listen to this, and I don't know if enough of them know us well enough to like be in on that joke and not just turn the podcast off as soon as I'm like, who was a hell of a baseball player who doesn't get enough credit? Alfonso Soriano. Which factual statement, because how good was Alfonso Soriano?
Dude, he was the fucking shit.
I was like falling asleep on Sunday after what I watched on conference championship weekend. And I was like, yeah, maybe Matt and I should just do a podcast where we talk about like Placidio Polanco and Vernon Wells and Andrew Jones and just not talk about this steaming pile of garbage that I just watched for 7 hours on Sunday.
Ironically, when you brought up mid 2000s baseball players, Placido Polanco was the first one that jumped in my head.
It's funny because I actually went down a rabbit hole with it too, and I was like, we could talk about Maglio Ordonez, and I was like debating, does Dustin Pedroia count because he was a rookie in like 2007, and I was like, I'll count him because Dustin Pedroia is my favorite baseball player of all time.
Yeah.
Who is, before we actually start talking about this, who is your favorite baseball player ever?
Just based on what he meant to the window of time that the Tigers actually had, it is going to be Justin Verlander. But Pudge is like right on his fucking heels.
Yeah.
Like that team does not turn the corner the way it did without the signing of Ivan Rodriguez.
I agree with you. That was like the happy part of our podcast where we're like, yeah, we're talking about Dustin Pedroia and Justin Verlander. Where do you want to go first? Should we start in the AFC or the NFC? Because I'm equally like, I know one is more painful for you, so that's why I'm giving you the option. But I'm just equally like, I can't wrap my head around what I watched this weekend.
I don't think there's a good answer to that. So take your pick.
Okay, well, the AFC Championship is first in my notes, so I guess we'll just start there. And we'll get to the pain part later, pain portion of this podcast. So AFC Championship, the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the Baltimore Ravens 17-10. If I was a Ravens fan, I don't think I would get over this game for a very, very long time. I think you can say that about both fan bases that lost this weekend.
Yeah.
What on God's green earth were the Baltimore Ravens doing on Sunday? It is the most mind-boggling thing I have ever seen. So Kansas City is ranked 28th in rush EPA this season. If you guys don't know what EPA is, it's a nerd stat for expected points added, which is meant to be like an advanced measure of how good you are, basically. Kansas City was one of the worst run defenses in the entire league this season. The Ravens ran the ball 33 times per game this season for a league high 156.4 yards per game. Matt, they called 11 runs and 42 passes on Sunday. They end up rushing the ball 16 times because Lamar scrambled a couple of times on those passes, but they called 42 passes and 11 runs. Their running backs, all of their running backs, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Dalvin Cook, Melvin, everybody that's on this team combined to carry the ball 6 times. They handed the ball off 6 times against the worst, one of the worst run defenses in the entire NFL.
Bottom 5.
I can't get over it, man. I was so high on the Ravens coming into this game. I was like, it is all in front of them.
Yeah.
It's just something about playoff games absolutely breaks John Harbaugh's brain. In the past, we could blame Greg Roman and say like, it's the offensive coordinator. But they have a new offensive coordinator. They have a whole new offensive system, and it's just like the same
and
shit.
It's a good system.
It was great all season.
Yeah. And then you just decided to abandon the fundamentals of that system in what, to this point, was the single most important game of the year.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's like they were just dying to give up on everything that made them good this season. They fall behind 7-0. Right? Kansas City gets the opening kickoff. They go down and score like a hot knife through butter. And from that moment to the end of the game, the Ravens fell apart in one of the most spectacular fashions you will ever see for a team that good. They were saying before the game that the Ravens had an MVP quarterback and a defense that led the league in yards allowed and turnovers forced. And that every time that's ever happened through NFL history, that team has won the Super Bowl. I don't have a word for it, man. I'm at like a loss for words. I've been thinking about this for 2 days at this point because it's Tuesday night at 8:00. And I don't know how to put it into words. Kansas City won the game on the first drive.
Yeah.
Because the Ravens just fell apart.
Yeah, and their brain broke immediately. And traditional strategy says, like, when you want to defer to the second half so you get the ball coming out at halftime. But in the playoffs, I almost think, like, you see situations like this, you almost need the ball first if your team isn't, like, well-founded enough to be able to respond to that. What if Baltimore starts up 7-0?
This is the thing that's so crazy to me, though. It's like, okay, if someone comes into your house and goes up like 14-0 or 17-0 and you start panicking, that's one thing. But my God, it was 7-0. And Baltimore completely lost their shit. And when do we start looking at John Harbaugh and being like, this guy might not be that good of a coach, at least not in big games.
Immediately. Right now, like, you have to look at him and say, like, you're now in the place where, like, you have to prove everything. It has been long enough since Joe Flacco won him a Super Bowl that doesn't carry you anymore.
That's the
And
thing is like so many of these coaches win a Super Bowl and they
mhm,
just kind of live off that. And they have
yeah,
like the Ravens have had some great regular seasons since then,
right.
but they've played 9 playoff games since they won the Super Bowl in 2012.
Yeah.
Would you care to
Like
guess how many of those they've won?
it's not a great number.
No, they're 3-6 since
Jesus
they won the Super
Christ.
Bowl in 2012.
Yeah. We talk about him all the time, but like look at Doug Peterson. He won a Super Bowl. He got propped up for it. What kind of consistency did you see from him after that year? Absolutely none. The Eagles fell apart after that. There was a progression to the mean as soon as he got to Jacksonville because Urban Meyer was literally the worst possible coach an NFL team could possibly have. But then the next year, when it's time for him to actually have his team take a step, they take a step back. Like, we really, really need to get away from this narrative that, like, if a coach wins a Super Bowl, that means they're good. Like, if Joe Burrow wins his team a Super Bowl, I'm not going to be like, oh man, like, Super Bowl winning head coach, Zach Taylor.
I think that's a good example because I feel like you can like get a good accumulation of talent or like a good enough accumulation of talent or have a
Hmm.
team that gets hot at the right time and win a Super Bowl, but it's and like that just kind of locks you into that job for as long as you want it because it is
Yeah.
so hard to win a Super Bowl. But man, I'm looking at John Harbaugh today. Like, I cannot believe that he would let this happen. I can't believe anybody would let this happen. Like, what did you watch on film at any point in this entire season that made you think that you should try to throw the ball 42 times against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a top 4 pass defense this season?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the way they want you to try to beat them.
Well, this is the thing is like, I think that the Chiefs defense deserves some credit for playing well,
Yeah, for sure.
but like the Ravens played into exactly what the Chiefs want you to do.
Yeah.
If the
You
Ravens ran the ball like 30 times and the Chiefs beat them, I would just be like, man, I'm really impressed right now. But as it stands, I don't look at this game and feel like that Kansas City won this game. I feel like the Ravens lost it.
I don't want to take anything away from the Kansas City defense because you can only defend the plays that the other team decides to run. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that like them playing like running plays right into the teeth of your defense doesn't lower the degree of difficulty. John Harbaugh needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror after this. And the irony is that very often in years past, like the critique was the overcommitment to the run. I think you and I probably have a pretty wide window of what a happy medium of that is, and they missed that by a fucking mile.
They ran the ball 33 times a game this season
Yeah.
for the most yards in the league.
Yeah,
And
if they had called like 15 like called runs, that would have been a monumental improvement.
if you're down multiple scores early and you start throwing the ball to try to get back into it, I understand that more than just like from the very beginning of the game. It seemed like their game plan was we're going to throw the ball every single play.
Yeah.
It absolutely baffles me that they would do that.
Yeah. Well, and the defense rallied, right? Like they gave up plenty of points in the first quarter, and Kansas City only put up 17.
No, the Ravens absolutely had every single chance to win this game.
Yeah.
The play calling was horrendous. They played I mean, as a group, they played undisciplined defense. They played dirty the entire
Hmm.
game,
Yeah.
which doesn't surprise me because like this is who the Ravens are as a team, as a franchise, and as a group of players. is that they're dirty, they're cocky, and when they get punched in the mouth, they don't know what the fuck to do. And so Kansas City comes out and punches them in the mouth, and it's like, great, the defense rallied, but it was already too late because the offense did absolutely nothing for 3.5 hours.
When Ray Lewis was the heart of the team, like, yeah, you can take a punch and respond to that because Ray Lewis is like he's one of the best leaders of his entire era. And that was a pretty long era. He played for like 20 years.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Ray Lewis led teams did not take very many punches.
No, it was mostly him borderline murdering people.
Well, this is kind of the thing is like the identity of that team for so long was a defense first. They were the ones where like the Patriots would have a really good offense and the Ravens would come and punch them in the mouth. And then the Patriots had like they were the one doing the punching. They weren't the one getting punched. So like it's a different era where their best player and their leader is their quarterback, who we'll talk about in a little bit. It is just a different personality for the team. But like the play calling is one thing. Everyone on this team also acted like a moron on Sunday. Like, it's hard to be mad at Zay Flowers because he's pretty much the only person on this team, or at least the only person on the offense who did anything on Sunday. He had 115 yards receiving. The next highest was like 39, and that was Nelson Aguilar, who had one catch. But they're going down to try to score a touchdown, and Zay Flowers has a big catch, gets up and gets a taunting call, which like as soon as he did it, it was like they're 100% calling that.
Yeah.
You get up, you throw the ball back at the guy, and then do your little like flexing thing, which like I know he does after every big play, but you have to be smarter than that to be standing over a dude and do that.
Yeah.
Then he gets the chance to make up for it and tries to stick the ball out over the end zone, and it gets knocked out by Snead, and it's like absolutely phenomenal play by Snead.
Yeah.
But that is one of the biggest no-nos in football. Like if he was on the Patriots and he did that, Bill Belichick would have cut his ass after this game. Like you do not do that. And you saw why.
That's why Bill's unemployed.
Yeah. So. But it still would have happened, damn it. Bill would have never drafted a successful first round wide receiver in the first place. So it's a dream world, but like
not drafting a successful wide receiver before the 6th round.
Yeah. When we played football, they were like 2 hands on the ball at all times.
Yeah.
Never stick that thing out. And if you did, you would get benched. Probably cut if they were allowed to cut us in high school, but they weren't really paying us. So we just kind of stick you on the scout team.
I mean, we did enough throwing footballs at each other that we kind of beat each other up. So
play games. But they get multiple roughing the passer calls. There's the play where like Patrick Mahomes is scrambling out of the pocket and the dude hits him directly in the face like 2 minutes after he's thrown the ball. And I thought the worst one of all that just like personified the Ravens franchise as a whole to me is when the Chiefs have the ball trying to run out the clock and it's 1st and 5 and they purposely go off sides to get it to 1st and 10 again. So they're not using their timeouts on 1st and 5. Cool. I like it. That makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
The problem is that the linebacker just fucking blows up the offensive lineman. Like all you have to do is just go off sides and reset it. And he went and like purposely tried to hurt that guy. There's no other way to look at it. The way that he is going at someone who's completely not ready and just smashes him and throws him like 5 yards backwards. And it's like that's the Ravens right there. And instead of moving him up 5 yards, you move him up 15 because it's unnecessary roughness. And I'm like, this is everything you need to know about the Ravens in one play. Is that they're dirty, they're too cocky, and they can't take getting punched in the mouth. They're bullies. And when you bully a bully back, this is what happens. They crumble and fold and lose the AFC Championship at home in embarrassing fashion.
Well, and who is that on? John Harbaugh. We all know that well enough that Dan Campbell would not fucking stand for that shit.
There's a massive difference between being tough and being a mentally tough football team.
Yeah.
And being what the Ravens are. The Ravens are fake tough. They act tough, But this was the moment where you needed to be tough physically and mentally, and you shit your pants.
Yeah.
And it's everyone. It's the coaches, it's the players. I mean, credit to McDonald and that defense for getting it together and keeping them in it for the whole second half. But
Yeah.
like, it's an organization-wide failure to lose this game at home. The way that they did.
Yeah.
The way they did. It's unbelievable.
Losing to Patrick Mahomes, that is an acceptable thing. It has happened many times and it will happen many more times. The way it happened, look, if he beats you, only putting up 17 points, you put an entirely one-dimensional game on offense, then you really didn't try too much.
The fact that Patrick Mahomes is back in the Super Bowl after everything that we've said about the Chiefs this season.
Yeah.
I think if you're every other AFC team, except maybe the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to look at this and be like, we're never going to beat that guy. Ever. This was the worst Kansas City team that we've seen since Patrick Mahomes took over. You had away games at Buffalo and at Baltimore against Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, quarterbacks who the NFL would have us believe are competition for Patrick Mahomes. And like, it's not like Mahomes was like phenomenal. I mean, he was very good in his own way on Sunday. You know, he went into Baltimore, threw the ball 39 times and didn't have one turnover worthy play the entire game. So like,
yeah, he made the plays that he needed to make.
Yeah. So that was impressive, but like this season was set up for anyone to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and nobody could do it.
Yeah.
And now they're back and it's like, can San Francisco do it? I don't know. Like, cause
no.
You would think that San Francisco would run the ball more than Baltimore did, but like something about playing the Chiefs is just breaking people's brains because like Buffalo had them on the ropes and then decides they're going to throw like deep balls at the end of the game. They're like, haha, hero ball time, which is very Buffalo. Baltimore has even with the game Baltimore played, they had every chance to win. Zay Flowers fumbles into the end zone. Lamar Jackson all of a sudden decides he's going to throw into triple coverage to Isaiah Likely. One of like probably the worst pass that I've seen in the playoffs in years. And I watched Mac Jones play a playoff game.
At the very least, throw it out the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Like that is the worst that you're allowed to let happen on that play.
They have every chance to win this game and they can't do it. So like, I don't know if you're an AFC team, how you can look at this and be like, we have a chance of making the Super Bowl. Because it has to feel like you don't as long as Patrick Mahomes is there. Unless maybe you're the Bengals. They're the only team that's done it. Besides the Patriots.
The only thing that I can see is, does the front office of Kansas City say, guys, look at what we did this year. We do not need to invest in wide receiver.
I mean, do they need to invest in wide receiver though? They traded away Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And they've made 2 Super Bowls in a row without him. So, and it's like, this is what I'm saying is like, look at everything we did this year. We've been talking about football for over 20 weeks, over 6 months. You and I have sat here for an hour every week and talked about football. And all these things mattered. All these things. We're like, this matters and this matters and this is interesting and this is interesting. And the only thing we've learned is the only fucking thing that matters in this sport is who does and doesn't have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's largely true. I just wonder how many playoff games in a row can you rely on MVS to make the big play?
All of them, apparently, because homie couldn't catch a fucking ball all season.
No,
and then makes the game-winning play back-to-back weeks.
He is the reverse Josh Reynolds.
I feel like nothing we've done for the last 25 weeks matters, Matt. The fuck are we even doing here? We could have come on
This
26 weeks ago and just been like,
yeah.
well, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, so I think they're going to win, and that we would have been done and we would have been
Yep.
correct.
Yeah. We by the way, this is our last NFL podcast ever.
Just go to basketball. At least there's some variety. And I understand the irony of me being upset about this because I'm a Patriots fan. And for 20 years, this is how other people felt about my franchise. But like, God, I miss Joe Burrow. Tom Brady and Joe Burrow are the only two guys who can beat this man. And I don't know if Joe Burrow can ever do it again. It might have been a one-time thing because Patrick Mahomes was concussed in the second half of that game. But we had 1 year, one beautiful year of reprieve from this fucking Chiefs thing. And now I got to watch another Super Bowl where they talk about like Patrick Mahomes. Is he already the greatest of all time? If not, when will he be? And they're going to show Taylor Swift 75 freaking times after every
in the
play.
first quarter.
Can I just be clear about something? I don't like, I'm seeing all of these posts about like, oh, these men with their fragile egos are just butthurt about Taylor Swift. You don't care when Jack Nicholson goes to basketball games. Why do you care that Taylor Swift goes to football games? Because I don't have to see Jack Nicholson every 10 goddamn seconds on a basketball broadcast.
Yeah.
I don't see like every time Anthony Davis gets fouled, they don't cut to Jack Nicholson and be like, oh, what did Jack think?
That is Anthony Davis's side chick is Jack Nicholson.
That's the comparison I was trying to
make.
And now we're done with football.
Or yeah.
It's not Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift's music good enough. I don't think that she's made anything particularly great in a long time, but like she has good music. This is gonna get the podcast.
Oh no, yeah, this is where we get throttled.
This is it. But
the Swifties are gonna find us.
It's not Taylor Swift. It's not Travis Kelce. It's the oversaturation and that like the NFL just beats you to death with anything they can get their hands on. They just beat you over the head with it for hours.
Yeah. I have no issue with Taylor Swift going to the games. I have no issue with what Taylor Swift is doing at any of the games. My issue is with what sports media is trying to do with Taylor Swift. Like that is my issue.
It's not
she's having a great time. Like, good for her. Like, get it, Taylor. Seriously. But like, we don't need to see her every waking fucking moment. That shit. I hate it for all celebrities. Like, I don't, unless it's something that I find particularly funny with our insider on Max Crosby. Like, I don't particularly care to know about the goings on of celebrities' lives.
Yeah, this was the thing. It's like this is a pro Taylor Swift podcast. We like Taylor, but when every single podcast leads off the week with, "Oh, do you think Travis Kelce would propose to Taylor Swift after the Super Bowl?" And we don't lead off with, "Why the fuck aren't the Ravens running the ball more?"
Yeah,
that's when I have a problem. But yeah, man, I just want some variety in my life. I don't want to watch 49ers Chiefs. Like, it's going to take me a full week to get ready to break that game down with you.
So if I have to watch Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift after the Super Bowl, like, I might take a couple years off of watching football. Like,
I was going to say, you don't have to watch anything. You could just switch over to the Ocho and watch competitive macrame.
Yeah.
Big Joan Rogers going for her 10th straight championship. She might propose to old Melvin after the thing is over. Who knows? The last thing I had on this game. So Lamar loses another playoff game, high profile game, is now 2-4 in the playoffs, which has prompted a new gambling rule for us and a new postseason picks rule that I like to call the Joel Embiid corollary.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got to that comparison because I think that's a lot more accurate.
It's more fair than James Harden. But
Yeah.
so the new Ravens gambling rule is the Joel Embiid corollary. Whenever you're thinking about betting on the Ravens in a playoff game, you need to stop and think, if this was an NBA playoff series, would Joel Embiid win it? And if the answer is no, you need to immediately bet against the Ravens because that's
Yeah.
who they are. They're Joel Embiid and the 76ers. So, look at the Kansas City thing and think, Patrick Mahomes, let's compare him to Giannis. Would Joel Embiid win a playoff series against Giannis? Absolutely not. You need to bet against the Ravens. You can look at Houston and compare them to the Orlando Magic. They're a young upstart team who's really fun. Would Joel Embiid win that series? Yes, Joel Embiid would win that series, granted that it's in the first round, and he would move on. And so you can bet on the Ravens. That's your rule.
I love how clear and concise that was, but also the tone on it was perfectly like you were explaining it to a fifth grade math class.
It's like a picture of Joel Embiid and a picture of Lamar Jackson, and I'm like,
that's your story problem.
this man, would Joel Embiid win this playoff series? It's funny because you could just give me a team and I would tell you if Joel Embiid would win that playoff series just by the sound of it. It's would he beat the Magic? Yes. Would he beat the Nets? Yes. Would he beat the Celtics? No. Would he beat the Bucks? Also no. And it's just pick the teams in the NFL that match up with those teams, and you got it, and you know what to do with the Ravens from now on.
Yeah.
This rule gets added to other illustrious podcast rules, such as never pick Dallas, Minnesota, or the Chargers in any situation. Never pick the Bills against a good quarterback. And always bet the Philadelphia 76ers to lose in the second round of the playoffs. Because that's where the Joel Embiid corollary goes out the window, is that if it's the second, maybe this should have been the other thing that should have let us know, is that the Ravens got a bye. So this was really their second playoff game or second playoff series.
Yeah.
And the 76ers always lose in the second round.
Yep.
I got thrown off because it was a conference championship, and Philadelphia 76ers are never going to make one of those.
No.
So.
Not with Joel Embiid, that's for sure.
The one rule I'm not ready to commit to is that people are saying that you can never bet against Patrick Mahomes again. I'm 95% there, but again, I don't feel like Kansas City won this game. I feel like Baltimore lost it.
That's exactly what happened. And look, a healthy Joe Burrow, there's always a chance he can go toe to toe with him. I mean,
well, just the fact that we've made money betting against Patrick Mahomes before,
yeah,
the very first episode of this podcast was the Buccaneers Chiefs Super Bowl preview, where we both took the Bucks.
Yeah,
won that one, and then we also both bet on the Bengals the time that they beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. So I'm not 100% there on Patrick, and to be honest, part of that might just be that I'm super salty that someone is on a GOAT track where okay, he's been the starter for 6 years. This is going to be his fourth Super Bowl, right? Yeah, because the Patriots beat him in the AFC Championship and the Bengals beat him. So he's been a starter for 6 years. This is his fourth Super Bowl. If he wins, he's going to have 3 by the time he's 28. And then it's watch out, man, because, this team could easily go out and add Mike Evans and draft a wide receiver, and then all of a sudden he's kind of reloaded on weapons too, and it's oh god. So
the direction the front office decides to go with the success they've had this year is going to be very interesting to me, because I could see it going either way. This could be a sign for them to load up, or it could be a sign for them that they don't need to spend at the positions that they absolutely need to spend at.
Yeah, I think the longer this goes on and the more success the Chiefs have, the more the Brady equals Jordan, Mahomes equals LeBron thing is coming true, where it's okay, we have this guy who's the established GOAT, and then you're going to have people who start arguing for this other guy more and more every year. And the further we get away from when Tom Brady retired, the more and more people are going to be oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that all ends up. But if he comes out of the Super Bowl 2-2, we're having a different conversation than
Yep.
if he wins this and comes out 3-1. So
The other rule that we talked about a little bit that I am starting to feel very strongly in favor of. Do no other rules apply? Okay, what do you think is going to happen? Bet against that.
the Occam's razor rule. Usually the dumbest explanation is the correct one, which is like a very simplified version of Occam's razor, but like it's kind of what it means. So
yeah.
All right. So Kansas City going to the Super Bowl again, the fourth time in 6 years. Going to play the San Francisco 49ers, who beat.
I thought we said we were done.
You can sign off now. I'll do this part by myself. San Francisco beats Detroit 34-31 in the NFC Championship. I left this game feeling like the two better teams lost on Sunday. I mean, the Ravens because they're stupid. The Lions because we can't have goddamn nice things in Detroit.
Yeah.
They're up 24-7 at half. They give up 27 straight points to make it 34-24 and then score a TD at the end that gets them to within 3 and covers the spread. And I just want to say before we talk about anything else here that I'm really going to miss this year's Detroit Lions because they were a fucking wagon for betting. I went back and looked at all of my bets because the Lions were my most bet on individual team this season. I was 10-2 betting on the Lions, including having them plus 6.5 in this one. And when San Francisco went up by 10, I was like, man, this is going to be one of the worst, like, bad bets that we've had in a while. And then they just go right down and cover. And I was like, those are my Lions, man. That's my team.
Well, even just that series. Yeah, they scored the touchdown there. If they don't run the ball on that third down and waste a timeout, it's still slim odds. Don't get me wrong. But then you have the 3 times potentially get the ball back. Right. And that's just one of the litany of things from this game where you go back and look at and it's like, man, they just lost their shit.
The thing about this game is this is kind of the same thing for me anytime a team blows a big lead like this. I think everyone wants to go back and blame like one particular thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people are like, oh, well, Dan Campbell going for it on the fourths is the thing. And people are like, oh, it's Josh Reynolds dropping the ball is the thing. But
that's a big one.
It is. But like the truth of the matter is that in games like this, it's similar to when the Falcons blew the 28-3 lead to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's not one thing. It's a million little things that all went wrong. And if just like one of those things doesn't go the way it went, we might be sitting here having a different conversation.
Yeah.
Like Josh Reynolds brings in one of those fourth downs. Brandon Ayuk doesn't catch this ridiculous pass that hits a Lions defender in the face.
Yeah.
I don't text you at halftime and say congratulations on the Lions going to the Super Bowl. No one knows what one of these things could have been the tipping point.
That was the one.
It's my fault. I'm
it's
sorry.
Entirely on you.
I'm sorry, Matt. I felt so bad. I was just so excited for you guys. And so like the Lions are coming down at the end of the half and it's 3rd and 12 and they run the ball and get the first down. And there's like a 3rd and 18 that they convert. And then they go and like get this field goal. And I was like, I was like looking at Marley. Marley's watching this game with me. And I was like, you don't run on a 3rd and 12 and get it and convert a 3rd and 18 and like lose a football game. I was like, Marley, the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And then we watched the second half and she's like, are they still going to the Super Bowl? No.
Why did you do that to your wife, the mother of your child? Whose favorite team this is?
It is her favorite team, but it's
also
funny.
Your son's.
Oh God, Don't don't do that to me. Marley was like, if they win this game, are you going to be a Lions fan? And I was like, it doesn't really work that way. My belief of like fandom is that if you can switch your fandom for there's like a few reasons that we don't have to go over in detail, but there's a few reasons where you can switch your fandom in life. But if you're like a true blue fan of a team, you can't turn it off. It doesn't work that way. Unless something like horrific happens or your kid grows up to play on a different team or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't just like become a fan of another team. So I was like, no, I'm not just going to be a Lions fan all of a sudden, but I was rooting for them. So we're laying in bed at night. We're trying to fall asleep. And I was like, man, I was like, I don't think that Lions fans are going to sleep for like the next couple days. And Marley's like, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about the Lions. And I was like, I did this to her. She wasn't a sports fan and I ruined her.
Yeah.
My dad always says this. He's like, you know how much easier our lives would be if we weren't sports fans and we didn't have to like have all this needless stress in our lives. He's like, look at Marley. She's so smart. She doesn't care about this shit. And we do so much. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. But also, like, I just love it. I'm a fan. I can't turn it off. And so now I'm getting Marley into it. And I'm looking at Maddox and I'm like, should I really do this to him? Like, did you feel like when you left Sunday night, did you feel like we should ever get Maddox into sports? Just pain.
No, yeah. Like, well, I mean, lifelong Lions fan, so all I've known is pain. But
It's funny. It's funny coming from me, someone who's watched my team win 6 Super Bowls, 4 World Series, an NHL championship. Is that it? Yeah, that's it.
yeah, like
I have like 11 championships in my life.
just
Also,
like nothing but pain with the Lions, and I got to watch my team in the NBA set a record for consecutive losses this year.
I forgot something. One of the championships of the teams I root for. I mentioned Big Joan Rogers in competitive macrame. I'm a Big Joan fan. Watched her win 7 consecutive competitive macrame championships. So
Bandwagon.
it's my girl rep hovers every single time. Fucking wagon. Big Joan. Yeah, we should have known when the Pistons beat the Thunder earlier in the day that this was going to happen. Can't have two nice things at the same time in Detroit.
It happened in the Dallas game too.
Is that true? It's
the
only 2 games the Pistons won all season.
It's like the 6th, 5th, something like that.
I saw a graphic the other day that said without Cade McNamara, what is Cade's last name?
Cunningham.
Who the fuck's Cade McNamara? Oh, the Michigan quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, without Cade McNamara, they're not doing well either. But without Cade Cunningham, their win percentage this season is .083.
Yeah.
And with him, it's 250. And I was like, well, it's still not good, but it's better. But yeah, so the truth is that like it's not one thing, it's all of these things that lead to a collapse like this. And it's like one of my coworkers told me it was a bad 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, while technically true, it's more than that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, man. That's just a tough way to lose. Like one of my other buddies said, if you would have told me before the game we were going to lose 34-31, I would have been proud of the guys and I would have been like, man, at least we put up a fight. But I walked out of it feeling like the same old Lions. And it's just like another gut punch after like feeling like it wasn't going to happen this season.
Yeah. All I got out of that game is Jared Goff lied to me. So like years ago, like the quote from Jared Goff in like that first season after one of the games that just like how that first year went, like they started 0-10, but it was just like tough loss after tough loss. And his quote was verbatim, I promise you the gut punches will stop. And to lose that game that way, like I can honestly say, like, Jared Goff has been 10 times better than I ever could have asked him to be. So in Detroit. So like this isn't me shitting on Jared Goff, as much as it may sound like that. But man, for that quote to happen 3 years ago and then like this season to end that way, it's like, God damn it.
I want to ask you something about Jared Goff. I have two other topics I want to talk about on this game, but I just want to say before I ask you the question that in my experience as a fan who's watched my team lose Super Bowls and lose conference championships, that it is much more preferable to lose a conference championship than it is to lose a Super Bowl. And I think people who are listening to this are going to be like, that's a loser's mentality. You always want the chance to win the Super Bowl. And I don't disagree with you, but when you lose the Super Bowl, you have to hear about it for the entire offseason. Like the entire one. And you got to watch the other team have a parade. And they're just, it's bad. At least now, you just got to get through this week and they'll be done talking about it, at least nationally.
Here's the thing, though. Either team, whoever wins the Super Bowl, we beat one and we should have beat the other. I'm looking at this Super Bowl and I'm like, man, the Lions are better than both of these teams.
So who's the real champ this year?
Nobody.
You're
Everybody loses.
The Detroit Lions are the moral victory champions of the 2023
Always has been.
season. I wanted to ask you, now that the season is over, how do you feel about the fact that they're talking about like a long-term extension with Goff? Because you kind of been back and forth on whether you want him to be a quarterback.
You can't not have a long-term contract discussion with him after this. I am still very up in the air on what I want. Because here's the thing. With how well he played over the last season and a half, his market value is probably sitting at or above 50 million a year with the way quarterback contracts are right now. I don't know how easy that's gonna be to build a winning team around. If your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, obviously that's pretty fucking easy. But Jared Goff, as we've talked about many times before, does need a very specific supporting cast around him. He needs that elite offensive line. He needs guys that are going to get open. He's not going to throw to guys that are not open, but you can make them open, right? He's never going to throw to Kenny Golladay. And those are guys that you have to pay, right? Penei Sewell needs a contract. Amon-Ra St. Brown needs a contract. Anything under 50 million a year, I'm on board for. But I don't know that he's gonna bite that bullet. Now, granted, we just found out today that Ben Johnson is coming back for another year. I mean, I think you and I are probably on the same page that Seattle was a pretty good coaching opportunity for any head coach. So if he's turning down that good of an opportunity and coming back, there's probably a small window of opportunity that maybe Jared Goff takes a little bit of a discount because he likes being here, especially with how bad things got in LA. Like, I'm sure he appreciates being here a lot.
You got the fans like chanting Jared Goff in San Francisco too. Like you can hear the Jared Goff chants through the TV.
You got them chanting Jared Goff at Red Wings games.
I feel like he's very connected to the city at this point. So I do see him coming back. I think that's also like the silver lining. I mean, not that you can find very many silver linings in losing this NFC championship, but I firmly believe that if you hadn't lost the NFC championship in the fashion that you lost it, that Ben Johnson might have actually left and taken one of those jobs. I feel
Yeah.
like if you're in that Lions locker room or you're on the coaching staff, you're any part of that organization and probably the majority of fans,
Yeah.
that you're like, we can win. We can do this here after what
Yeah.
we've seen this season and in these playoffs. This is like one of those moments that either the team crumbles. It is like what we were talking about earlier with like mental toughness is like, okay, you can go into this offseason and this team can crumble and your culture can fall apart.
Yeah.
Or you could be a mentally tough team that this lights a fire under your ass and you're like, man, we were this close. Like you said,
Yeah.
out of the 4 teams I watched this weekend, I thought the Lions were the best one, even though they didn't win.
Yeah.
And you got to think like we can do this here. Like this team can get this done, especially because you have $58 million in functional cap space this offseason, which like I know you got guys who need deals. There's going to be
Yeah.
extensions, but maybe you kind of kick
Yeah.
the raises down the road a little bit. You do some
Well,
restructuring, kind of figure
yeah.
some things
So
out.
there will be restructuring. As much as I hate to say it, because I love Tracy Walker. He's absolutely a cap cut. He's like a cap hit of like 12 million this year. He's gone.
Yeah.
So like that they'll get more back in cuts. I'm sure Romeo Okoro is gone. They're
Well,
like
so combine like the cap space you guys have to like maybe add. I was looking at defensive secondary free agents.
yeah.
Buda Baker has a team option, but he's potentially a free agent. I was like, I wonder if they go after someone like that and maybe like
Yeah.
give up a pick or like but also so you have some money to do some things, but then also like I think Brad Holmes is a GM that we can just say he's gonna nail the draft.
Yeah.
Like sight unseen at this point because he got trashed last year for drafting running backs and outside linebackers and safeties and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they, I think, easily had the best rookie class this
Every
season.
every pick that got trashed, the ones that were questioned the most were Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and why am I blanking on his name? The linebacker.
Jack Campbell.
Jack Campbell. It's such a generic name. That's why.
That's why he was on my guys because he's Jack
Yeah.
Campbell, linebacker from Iowa.
Yeah.
He just kind of does everything well, but nothing particularly amazing. And I was like, this is just he's like
Yeah.
the prototype Iowa player.
Yeah. All three of those guys played better than you could have asked a rookie to play all year. Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta are legitimately star caliber players at their positions.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Seattle had JSN and Devin Witherspoon this season, and the Lions draft class is the best draft class. So
Yeah.
I think you're at the point where you know you're going to add talent in the draft. You know you're going to make some smart decisions with your money this offseason.
Yeah.
Coming out of this weekend, I would feel way better as a Lions fan than if I was a Ravens fan. Because like if you're the Ravens, this was the team. This was the year.
Yeah.
You don't know what happens next. If this team couldn't get it done, who does? But the Lions, I think, were a year early, maybe, where it's like, yeah, we knew they were going to be good this season, but didn't think they were going to be like competitive for a Super Bowl good. And now you come back, you're going to add to this for next season. You're going to have Ben Johnson back. You might have Aaron Glenn back. So I think
Yeah.
I would just always rather be a Lions fan than a Ravens fan because I hate the Ravens.
Especially with Ben Johnson coming back. Like I feel very good about next year. That not where the pain is for sure. It's just I'm really glad that we have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, right? So like I needed those 2 weeks to get myself ready to watch a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because if we went into this weekend and I had to watch these two teams play, like, nah, that's gonna hurt too much. is honestly going to be like the first Super Bowl that I'm actually rooting for Patrick Mahomes because fuck Kyle Shanahan.
It's funny what a playoff game will do to you.
Yeah.
Or like I think about this more with like series in the NBA and like the NHL and stuff because it's like
Yeah.
7 games, but one football game can
Yeah.
really make you hate somebody.
Oh yeah.
It's like what was your opinion about the 49ers before this week? Just like as a general franchise. Like I don't really feel
Yeah,
like you
they
cared.
were just a team, and then like before the game even kicked off, I heard that quote from Shanahan about how like, well, they haven't played a team like us yet. I'm like, okay, well, you haven't played us, so that's definitively true for both teams, but you got your ass kicked in the first half, and we chose to give you the win in the second half. You're not better than us. You're a piece of shit. You're a fraud, and you're going to lose in the Super Bowl. Because that's what you do.
I
You lose
thought
championship games.
I thought the Joel Embiid corollary was going to be the only TikTok breakaway from this episode, but that's going out there. I'm putting that
Oh,
out in the
yeah.
world. Got to win back those Lions fans on TikTok. Uh, yeah, no, it's just funny. Like
Fuck Kyle Shanahan.
all the playoff games that I watched my team play over the years, I joke. Uh, when we talk about other teams, I'm like, I fucking hate that team. And people are like, why do you hate the Chargers? Like, who hates the Chargers? And I'm like, no, because we went to San Diego and we beat them, and they cried when we did Sean Merriman's lights out thing on their logo. And they're like, oh, yeah, Patriots dancing on our logo. Like, LaDainian Tomlinson legit cried in the media because he's a little bitch. And I don't care how good of a running back he was. And these feelings never go away, Matt. They never go away. I hate LaDainian Tomlinson. I hate the Colts, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Giants, the Eagles, the Panthers. People are
It's
like,
like a
why do
list
you
of like 20 teams.
like literally the only teams that I don't hate are like the Lions and the Saints. It's like the Patriots are my favorite team. I like the Lions because I live in Detroit. I'm apathetic towards the Saints. Fuck everyone else because pretty much every other team we either played in the playoffs or in a Super Bowl, or like they beat us on like a primetime game and acted like they just won the Super Bowl when Tom Brady was our quarterback. And I'm like, okay, you're on the list. So it's pretty much everybody, man. Some teams, especially like the Steelers, the Colts, the Broncos, the Ravens, but like it's harder for me to find teams that I don't hate than teams that I do because it's a lot and it never goes away. You're going to hate the 49ers for the rest of your life. And it's going to be like 20
Yeah.
years from now, and people are going to be like, why do you hate the 49ers? Who cares? And you're going to be like, fuck Kyle Shanahan. He's a fraud. He can't win big games. He can't come from behind. He's a bitch. And people are, nobody understands Matt and his hate for the 49ers, but I'll know.
I will say, I think this offseason, there's gonna be a lot of people are focusing on the secondary for Detroit, which it's fair. Like we need, especially like help at corner for sure. You know what is gonna make those corners a lot better? More pass rush. Because you know what? If you got Debo and Ayuk running around for 4 or 5 seconds, nobody's going to cover them that long.
How about a corner who doesn't get hit in the face by the football?
Yeah, that's what happens when you have to play undrafted free agent rookies.
It was funny because people are like, wow, Brock Purdy had a good game. And I'm like, well,
No, he didn't.
take out like 54 yards because that was
Yeah.
an interception waiting to happen. It's just that catch for you is also going to go down with like how I feel about the David Tyree catch
Yep.
and Mario Manningham and Javon Curse almost did it to us in the Seattle Super Bowl if they would have just run the ball with Marshawn Lynch. Julian Edelman did it to the Falcons. Like it's just that's what happens when you get away from these games is you have two lasting memories. Is there's like just moments you don't remember the whole game, but you remember like moments. where you're just like, oh God, like if that had gone differently,
Yeah.
and you just have a searing hate in your heart for them for the rest of your life. And you're going to hate the 49ers. And if Kyle
Yeah.
Shanahan ever goes anywhere else, you'll hate that team too.
Yep. Yeah. The one thing I mean, there's a lot of things I love about Ben Johnson coming back, but what I'm hoping his takeaway from that experiences is I should have done all gas the entire game so that the next time we play them, we put up 50 because we could have.
Yeah, the only other thing on Ben Johnson, you said that you like the Seattle job more than Washington, and I understand why, but I think that like Washington would also be a particularly interesting job to me
Oh
because
yeah.
you get to take
Well,
your own quarterback and like kind of start
the
over.
only thing there is like we don't know much about the ownership yet. I think there's a lot to like about the Washington job, right? You get to take your quarterback at number two, and like you're starting off with a pretty strong wide receiver core there. I think another thing that people are kind of overlooking with Ben Johnson here is that he knows how much he hasn't made with Penei Sewell. Half the shit that we run in our running game, he can't run anywhere else in the NFL because he's such a freak athlete and can get to like places on the field that other offensive tackles just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at like Washington and I'm like, okay, you get to take your quarterback of the future this year with the second overall pick. You kind of get you're gonna have your pick between like two guys, or if Chicago does something stupid, maybe you can get Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like starting over. But then I'm also like, God, I would never want to coach a team named the Commanders and have to
No.
wear those black jerseys with the little Wario W right in the front. Which leads me to my other point about why Washington is potentially the best job in the NFL. Because Ben Johnson, if you ever did take the Washington job, I would sell you the trademark for the Washington Fighting Georges for a measly $10 million. With what you're asking to be paid to be a head coach, you could afford it.
We honestly really need to get that trademarked.
Yeah, I mean Josh Harris is the owner of the Washington Commanders now, right?
I think that sounds about right.
Anybody, Josh Harris or anybody who works for the Washington Commanders, if you would like to buy the trademark for the Washington Fighting Georges, you can contact us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. The selling price is $10 million. It would be instantly the best name and logo in the entire NFL.
Oh yeah.
And you wouldn't have to be called the Commanders anymore. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Like that in and of itself.
All right. Bolds and Scolds lightning round from conference championship weekend. I don't have a bold yet, so I'll let you go first because I got to think about who mine's going to be.
Kyle Shanahan hit aside. It's Christian McCaffrey. He's the only big money running back in the NFL that I can look at right now. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's worth the fucking money because that game might have been a blowout without him. Like he just kept getting yards he shouldn't get.
He just consistently gets work.
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
I didn't really come up with one, but I'm going to give my bold to the Detroit Lion fans just as a whole. I feel like you guys deserved it. Home field advantage throughout the playoff run was absolutely epic in Detroit. And then they showed the watch party at Ford Field and it was sold out. And my surprise for next week was I wanted to put this big like smash cut together of all the Lions fans I know talking about how awesome the season's been. And we don't get to do that because the goddamn 49ers are playing the Chiefs next week. But you guys earned it. It was an awesome season. I'm happy for you guys, and I hope that we have more to come. And my son is included in that group because apparently he's going to grow up being a Lions fan.
Absolutely is.
Who is your scold?
It's got to be Josh Reynolds. my guy, you were Mr. Clutch all season, like earlier in the playoffs, and you just turned into a Butterfingers at the worst fucking time. And unfortunately, there's a chance that that ends up being how your time in Detroit ends, because there's a very real possibility that they try to upgrade that position. So, we appreciate what you did, but man, you really fucking screwed the pooch there.
Might have the upgrade in house too, because Jameson Williams looked pretty good in
Yeah,
that conference championship game.
yeah.
So
No, I think they're gonna look for an upgrade in their number 3 spot.
yeah. My scold of the week is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers announced earlier today that they will be hiring Chode coach Arthur Smith as their new offensive coordinator. I would like the Pittsburgh Steelers to point to one single thing that they saw out of Atlanta this season that made them think, you know who we should hire? Arthur Smith. For a team that like consistently has a winning record every single year, they make the dumbest decisions on offense. Yeah. It's like, hey, we're going to hire Matt Canada. We fired Matt Canada. We need a new offensive coordinator. You know who we're going to get? Chode coach Arthur Smith. Yep. The guy who refused to give the ball to Bijan Robinson after spending a 7th overall pick on him. Yeah. I don't know, man. I also thought about giving it to Iowa because they hired Tim Lester, who like they're like, oh yeah, Iowa is hiring Packers assistant Tim Lester. I'm like, I didn't even know that guy had a job after he got fired from Western Michigan.
Shouldn't have.
The fact that this guy keeps getting jobs is amazing to me. But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail. You can send us an email, fouledOutSports@gmail.com. You can find our videos on TikTok, Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It's a long name, but you can't miss it. We're going to have the Joel Embiid corollary and Matt's rant about Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers going up this week. That'll be a hit because like we get a lot of traffic from Metro Detroit because it's like location based from where I post. And that's why all the Lions fans came after me when I said the thing about booing small children, which is still booing small children is still wrong. Okay. I feel bad for Lions fans this week. It's not okay.
Unless they're your own children, because we all know that children are property.
I mean, if you have children, you've probably booed them. But that one will be a hit. And then I just like the Joel Embiid corollary. I'm happy with where we landed on that one.
So, yeah. That was an improvement.
Yes. So Matt and I will be back next Wednesday. We're going to just need a week to process and a weekend to relax and calm down before we come back. But next week we will break down the Super Bowl for you guys. We're going to give gambling picks. We're going to pick some props. We're going to pick some fake props like we do every year, come with the jokes. And we're going to break down the game and give you our Super Bowl pick and then like the gambling edge. I'm going to tell you, I have already placed my Super Bowl bet on who I think is going to win. I'm not going to tell you who that is till next week, but I wanted to get it early before it changes. So that's pretty much it for conference championship weekend. Matt, I'm sorry about what happened to your team. I'm more sorry that it's my fault for texting you at halftime. So stupid move. You know, I always thought people keep telling me like I'm turning into my dad as I become a parent. And I was like, I'm not turning into my dad. I'm turning into my mom, because my mom was always the one that was like, oh, the Patriots are going to win. She's like, yeah, that's awesome, guys. The Patriots are going to win. We'd be like, Bob, you never say that. And you would think that after watching 28-3, I would know better. But no, my bad, y'all.
Yeah. You fucked this up.
Yep.
Fuck Kyle Shanahan.
That's as good of a place as any to leave it. All right, my friend. I will see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye, Mom.
Bye, Robin.